Yeah. You ready? All right. Good morning, everyone. We'll get started on today's webinar, and we thank you so much for joining us as we prepare for the 4th of July. I hope you all are planning some great celebrations. Today, we're switching gears a little bit with our webinars, and we're going into a series of motivational speakers for the month of July. We're really excited about bringing these speakers to you because very well-known, recognized individuals with nationwide appeal. So we're happy today to start that series. So as we begin, again, I want to remind you to mute your microphone if you haven't, to turn off your video, enter any questions in your chat box. And while we're talking about the chat box, we have loaded in Dr. Tom Hill's notes for you today, the presentation that he wants you to have, the information he wants you to have. So that's available to you to download in the chat box. Our sponsor today is Dan Woods, who's president of Woods Advisors. Dan is an advisor and leadership consultant, keynote speaker, coach, and mentor, engaging and energizing leaders to make a difference in their lives and lives of those they lead. He focuses on leadership, decision-making, generational transitions, governance and board development, company and personal vision development, effective communication, and mission-focused leadership. Dan has a special interest in elevating the success and development of entrepreneurs and millennial age professionals. So thank you so much, Dan, for sponsoring today's program. You'll see contact information for Dan's company on the slides at the end of the presentation. So as we get started, and as much as we need information and education on business operations and developments related to the pandemic, we also need a time to refresh and renew ourselves and our employees. We want to bolster your spirits as we continue to deal with the unrest in the world today. And as I mentioned earlier, during the month of July, we will have a series of motivational speakers to share their thoughts and methods. Actually, one of the speakers is sitting in on this webinar today to see how we do this. So today we're very pleased to welcome Dr. Tom Hill to the webinar. After 26 years in public education at age 50, Tom left the University of Missouri, where he was a professor and administrator, to pursue an entrepreneurial career in real estate franchise sales. In less than 10 years, he built a company that in 1999 had over $3 billion in sales. He then sold his company in 1999 and now spends his time and energy giving back what he learned in becoming what he is today. Tom is a husband, father, grandfather, airplane pilot, marathon runner, mountain climber, skydiver, writer, and speaker. He's the author of Living at the Summit, co-author of the companion workbook Life Plan, also co-author of Chicken Soup. Actually, Tom has been here in Effingham speaking for the Chamber before, so we welcome him back in this format. Tom and his wife Betty have 6 children and grandchildren, and his hobbies are airplanes, mountain climbing, and fishing. As before Dr. Tom gets started, I wanted to let you know that we're giving away an autographed copy of his Living at the Summit book to one of today's participants. So we'll tell you about that a little bit later. Please help me welcome Dr. Tom Hill. Good morning, Tom. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. My pleasure. Have you read my book, Blessed Beyond Measure?
No, I haven't read that.
I have to get a copy to you. That's my life. I've been so blessed.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, where do you want to start?
Wherever you want to start. It's you're driving the ship right now. So.
Okay. If I talk too much, you need to interrupt or ask questions. Feel free.
Okay.
Yeah. I spent most of my professional career in education. I started out as a high school teacher, and then a high school principal, and then a superintendent of schools, and then a professor and administrator at the University of Missouri Columbia. And then a door opened that I did not anticipate. Norma, have you read the book When God Winks at You?
No, I haven't read that one. I have some reading to do.
You have some reading to do. Yeah. By the way, I encourage everybody to read at least a book a week. And there's a online speed reading program, the best I've ever encountered. If you can capture this, it's EYEQ Advantage.com. EYEQ, it's a play on words, IQ Advantage, and you'll quadruple your reading speed and you'll have a 90% retention. It really, really works. A guy I met was traveling around the world and got to Japan, and he came across this reading system. He actually bought it and brought it back to the United States. So anyhow, lots of good books to read, and I'm going to be recommending some of the good ones. When God Winks at You is about coincidence. And what happens, most people in a coincidence, they don't do anything about it. They just say, well, that was interesting. But it can be life-changing. I met my wife for 41 years through a total God wink. It just works. So the messages fall up on that God wink. So life changed dramatically when I was on vacation in Florida. My wife and I were driving back to St. Louis, and or Columbia, Missouri. And I said, yeah, we ought to stop and see a guy I roomed with in college. And his name's Howard McPherson. He owned Remax of Georgia, but I wasn't interested in Remax. I'd never sold anything, never had a real estate license. So we just stopped to say hi and had coffee. And he said, how's the university? And I said, well, it's really good. You're never going to be wealthy, but you got a lot of security. And in the process, he said, why don't you come down here to Georgia and sell Remax real estate franchise? This was January 21st, 1986. Not that I remember. And I said, well, Howard, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I've never sold anything, never had a real estate license. What are you thinking? He said, well, it's straight commission and you pay your own expenses. So Betty and I were driving home, and this is one of those coincidences. Betty asked me what I thought about that offer. And I said, well, it's crazy. We'd have to leave the kids and quit a job you can't get fired and on and on. And so we had quite a discussion. She said, let's go for it. And that changed my life forever. So March 7th or 8th, I was in Georgia by myself, and life took on a life of its own. So I built a real estate company. And one of my sayings, Norma, is you can't dream big enough. You just can't dream big enough. It's hard to do. So we went and risked everything we had at age 50 and moved to Georgia to see if I could sell the franchises. My goal for doing all that was to be able to own 50% of the rights to Remax for one state with my partner, Howard. I ended up owning 100% of 3 states, way beyond what I could dream or vision. So it just took on a life of its own. I'm going to go through all the principles and some of the things that I learned in that process. And at any time you have any questions, feel free to interrupt. So we sold the company in 25% of it in 1994. With my partner was to take the one I was selling it to, would buy the rest of it in 99. So he took over and running the company. We moved to St. Louis to retire. I had an airplane and a boat and all the fun things. And we moved to St. Louis because that's where my wife was from, and we had a lot of family here. And so people started saying, well, how did you do that? You were just an egghead professor. What did you learn in that process? So I started writing books and teaching and preaching and almost. It just took on a life of its own. I've given 2,000 speeches in 14 countries, either authored or co-authored 5 books. Never, ever, ever dreamed of that. Doors just open once you get on the path and understand the principles. So on the handout I had, do you have it on your screen now, Norma, the impact of one? Can you hear me, Norma?
Sorry, yes, they have a copy. They
Okay.
have it. It's not on the screen, but they have a copy of it. Yes.
Okay. So the impact of one person who's attracted you because of who you become can change your life forever. That's one of the principles. One idea well executed can change your life forever. When focused on the most important 15%, the remaining 85% will follow. We'll talk about these in detail. Principles are universal truths that, when applied, almost always work. So I'm always looking for what's the principle in this, whether it's selling real estate franchises or a better marriage or, whatever it is. What's the principle? And nothing changes till the pain remaining the same is greater than the pain of changing. So the next page is the 6 areas of life. So these God winks occurred when I was at the University of Missouri, had a great job. I was actually the administrator for the 4-H youth program for the state of Missouri. We had about 100,000 kids and 20,000 volunteers, and just an awesome opportunity. And one of my staff members came in at my office at the University of Missouri Columbia and put a couple cassette tapes on my desk. He said, "Tom, I think you'd enjoy these." This guy changed my life forever. Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N. He's since passed away. I became semi-friends with him. And it just, principles of universal truth when applied almost always work. So Betty and I sit down and listen to those 2 cassette tapes that I had not asked for. It's a total God wink. And it caused us to sit down in 1984, living in Columbia, Missouri, with the University of Missouri, to decide what's the most important thing in our life. So if you look at that page, we're looking at the 6 areas of life and the keys to success. We came up with 6 principles, 6 areas. Starting at the top with spiritual. And there's a book that had a big impact on my life, Celebration of Discipline. Health was our second priority. The book there on health. And then the third was relationships. These were going to be our priorities in life. Emotional was next. There's Daniel Goleman's book. If I had to pick one book that had the biggest single impact on my life, it'd be Joseph Jaworski's book, Synchronicity, The Inner Path of Leadership, intellectual, and then financial. So Betty and I sat down. This is a Sunday afternoon, 1984. Had a great job. Things were super positive, and rated ourselves in those 6 areas on a scale of 0 to 10. What would rank ourselves as our spiritual life, our health, and we said if push comes to shove, we'll always pick the higher thing. So if there's a conflict between our health and spiritual, we'll pick spiritual, or a conflict between money and relationships will win out. So we rated ourselves in all those areas, and we rated ourselves a 9 or higher in everything but financial. We had a really, really good life, but we decided we were going to follow those principles and see where it led. So these books aren't listed in my handout, but here's the books that changed my life. And we'll talk about them in more detail. The first one is Whole Brain Business Book, the Whole, W-H-O-L-E, Brain Business Book, written by Ann, A-N-N, Herman, H-E-R-R-M-A-N-N, and her dad, Ned Herman, N-E-D, Ned Herman. It's about brain wiring, which had a big, big impact on my life. So Ann and Ned Herman. And then Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. That didn't sound like a motivational book. But Robert Pirsig actually wrote that book. It's an old book. And it's about brain wiring in a crazy way. His son, Mr. Pirsig, had a mental breakdown and recovered from it. And when his son was about 15 years old, he saw the same characteristics in his son that he had before his breakdown. So he decided to take his son on a motorcycle and go to California. And another couple, friends of theirs, wanted to go with him, man and his wife, so they agreed to go. So the whole book is one chapter about the trip and what was going on, and one chapter was about brain wiring. As an example, and we'll come to this later, when they needed to adjust their motorcycle engine, Percy would listen to it. He wouldn't look at the manual. He listened to it and say, well, I need a little bit of tuning right here. The other couple would go strictly by the manual. It was what we call left brain. And then the book I already mentioned, When God Winks at You, it's by Squire, Squire, Rushnell, Rushnell. When God Winks at You. So that set the stage for our trip. So if you go to the next page, what I encourage everybody to do when I do these seminars is with your significant other, rate yourself privately away from your significant other on a scale 0 to 10. So on a scale like spiritual, where would you rate yourself on a scale 0 to 10, or health, and do that. And then after you've done that, get together. Do it individually and then get together. So spiritual is not necessarily religious. It's not denominational. We are spiritual beings, Betty and I believe. And then health, right on down the line. So next page. So the thing that changed my life was learning these two things. Betty and I made the decision on January 21st. We were driving back from Atlanta, Georgia, where my future partner was over Remax of Georgia. He wouldn't offer me Georgia. And my goal was to own 1/2 of one state. Remax was starting to take off. And so it caused Betty and I to sit down in that period of time. And then Betty had to stay in Columbia with our son, who was a junior in high school, to finish his high school junior year, and for the house to sell and to make. So I went on down in my travel trailer and went to Augusta, Georgia. And this is another God wink. You can't make these things up if you understand the principles. So I was there for 2 weeks by myself, living in a house trailer, in a travel trailer. I'd already agreed to speak at the University of Ohio in Columbus on Monday, the third Monday after I got down there. I didn't have a real estate license, never had a real estate license. Nobody talked to me. Said, well, you don't know anything about real estate. Why would I talk to you? So I'd gone 2 weeks. I'd parked my trailer near Fort Gordon there in Augusta, Georgia. And it's kind of low brow spot where I parked it. There was a concrete patio out front. It had been raining and it was muddy and leaves and things on the patio. So it's Friday morning, the second week. I haven't made a presentation. I got up to go look for a guy. I had his address, but I didn't have an appointment. I stepped on the middle step of my trailer. My feet went out from under me. I went sprawling through the mud and the water and the rain. And I still remember, Norma, it happened yesterday. I'm lying there in that situation. I said, Dr. Hill, you've lost your mind. You quit a job you can't get fired from, and you're laying here in the mud. It was just amazing time. Now, typically, what I would have done would just say, heck with it. Get cleaned up and go to Columbus and enjoy the weekend. But if you haven't read the book 212 Degrees, make sure you read it. You heat water to 211 degrees, what do you get? Hot water. Add one more degree. You can move a locomotive because you got steam. So one more call, one more effort, one more time can make a huge difference. So I got cleaned up, went looking for this guy, got lost. I thought, I'm having so much fun. I saw this guy standing out. I'm in Augusta, Georgia. I was going to sell all the franchise and, move on. So I saw this guy standing outside his office and having a smoke. So I thought, I'll see if he knows where this address is. So I rolled down my window and I said, sir, excuse me, can you tell me where this address is? And he said, sure, I know where that is. I said, who are you looking for? And I gave him the guy's name. He said, come in here and we'll call him. I know him. So I thought, well, that's really weird, but I got out of my car and we went in. We called, the line was busy. We called again, the line was busy. Third call, the line was busy, and he said, "Well, why in the world do you want to see this guy?" So I gave him a mini presentation. He bought my first franchise. Totally had no idea. It was a God wink. And so I became I'm told, they didn't keep track of it, I don't think officially, but I'm told by an executive with Remax in Denver that I became the #1 Remax franchise salesman in the world in 6 or 8 months. Just amazing. And that launched everything. So if you look at this page where it says understanding human behavior, I made the decision on January 21st to go for it. I was down there March 8th, I think 8th or 9th. So I decided I've never sold anything. I don't know anything about real estate. So I'm going to spend that time between January 21st, when we made the decision, and the time I was going to start, March 8th and 9th, on in there. So I decided, well, there's two things. I never had anything, I never got any training. Remax didn't provide any training on selling franchise at the time. This is 1986. So I said, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to learn to connect with people by their brain wiring, because I'd read that book, the Whole Brain Business book. In fact, through a God wink, I got to meet Ann. Ned actually passed away before I got a chance to meet him, so I met Ann. But anyhow, it's 1986, so I said, I'm going to understand the brain wiring that Ned Herman talks about, and I'm going to understand self-concept. My doctoral dissertation was on self-esteem. So I'm with those two things to see if I can connect with the prospect and have a success. So that's page understanding human behavior. That led to all kinds of things. So the next page, brain dominance. Don't put your family profile. When I meet you subconsciously, I'm gonna put you into one of four categories. You're primarily left brain dominant, and down at the bottom left, you'll see the parts of the dominance. A left brain person, see those little bitty boxes? Everything's real precise, very, very precise. So when I made an appointment, Norma?
Yeah.
Somebody has not muted their.
Yeah, we're checking into it.
Okay. So I want to know if you're primarily, when I meet you, this changed my life. Are you left brain dominant or right brain dominant, or are you integrated or eccentric, which is some strong left and some strong right? It's not a scientific process, but it works. So if you look at the bottom left, the grid, the positive, analytical, explicit, sequential, verbal, I would never, ever make an appointment with somebody without them suggesting the time that we meet. A left brain person would say, well, how about 10:15? It's okay, that'd be great, yeah. Or a right brain person said, oh, I'll just come by Thursday morning, anytime. They didn't make any difference. That's the open, that's the right brain, a 10. Intuitive, spontaneous, physical, creative, etc. So immediately, I'd call somebody up and I'd say, what time you want to get together? Or how many houses did you sell last year? They know precisely. They're very left brain, they're very structured. Time's very important. Whereas a right brain person is more about the feeling side. So I had a prospect in eastern, well, ended up owning Kentucky, Tennessee, and then things were going really good. We were living in Nashville. Ohio came up for sale. Howard called me. He said, Tom, you want to buy Southwest Ohio? And I said, well, I don't have enough money. And he said, well, I'll pay for it if you'll operate it, and I'll give you 49%. So we ended up doing that. Then Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi came up for sale. And we ended up getting that in total God wink. So that laid the foundation. I'm going to get into the detail on those two things. So the next page is left brain, right brain. Left brain your brain, the left side of your head, it, your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere are connected by what they call the corpus callosum, electrical chemical in your brain. So somebody who's a left brain, they want to know what. Ned Herman's book there, the Whole Brain Business book. The left, and then I hired a guy to come and speak to my real estate company from California, Bob Davies. If you look under, you see Bob Davies, Baroque classical music. Bob Davies came and spoke to my company, and he did a great job of explaining the brain wiring that my real estate agents could apply. This, if you see where it says Bob Davies, Baroque classical music, but it needs to be at Largo tempo. Write that down, Largo tempo. Largo tempo, Baroque music at Largo, and you can get the music from his website. There's a lot of it, but make sure it's Largo tempo. So that's functioning at 8 to 12 cycles per second. If you look on the left where it says the bridge, superconsciousness, alpha waves, those are functioning at 8 to 12 cycles per second. And just to give you an example, that after learning all this and then started doing speaking and all that, I wanted to learn, more about the music side of it. And people kept saying, Tom, you need to write a book. I'd never written anything except academic stuff for the university. But so 1994, we moved to St. Louis, and doors opening, coaching and teaching and speaking. And then somebody said, finally, people kept saying, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. So I went to a friend's cabin down in the Ozarks, put on, totally by myself, I put on Baroque music at Largo tempo, and it played 24/7. I slept with it on, and I wrote a book, my first book, Whole Brain Business, or the Exceptional Life book, which I wrote as a novel. I wrote 90% of it in 3 days. It's powerful. You're connecting those two brains. So anyhow, left brain is on the left side. You'll see 12 cycles per second, 12 plus cycles per second. That's your conscious brain. Your right brain is your subconscious. That's functioning at 4 to 8 cycles per second. And people fall in one of those 4 categories. The left brain, right brain, and in between. And then number 2 is the bridge. That's what's missing in most people. They're either dominant in one brain or the other. So the left brain is the what, the right brain is the answer, the intuitive. And most men, Caucasian men, American men, are left brain. That's a dominant. Most women are right brain. That's not good or bad, it just is. And so you can see a lot of characteristics in that when we talk about that later. So the next page, that's the right brain dominant. Okay, there it is. There's a test. We don't have time to go through it today, but we'll come back to that. All right, self-concept. That's the crucial one. Subconsciously, people need unconditional love, and they generally don't get it. I'm not a dog person, but dogs will give you unconditional love. And so when I meet you, I want to find out, are you in the 5% at the bottom, emotionally handicapped because you're so in need of acceptance, or approval driven, or a negative sense of self concept, or 40% positive, almost adequate, and then self actualized. I'm going to use a political example, and I'm not talking about politics as Republican or Democrat or anything else. Donald Trump is very left brain with a low self-esteem. His tweeting is a great example of that. So That's just a good example. He did it. He's done a politics aside. He's done a great job on the left brain on the business side of being the president. His tweeting he has a real low self-esteem. So that's just a good live example of what's going on. So terminology, high need for recognition, driven to succeed, either negatively or positively. So I grew up, I had a brother 3 years older and a sister 3 years younger. I was a middle child. My brother graduated from high school in 3 years, so I was constantly being measured up, at least in my mind, by my brother and his achievements. He ended up being a helicopter military pilot and on and on. But I grew up with a low self-esteem because I never ever measured up. I didn't realize that. That cost me my first marriage after 21 years. Was I didn't have a good self-concept, so I decided to do my doctoral dissertation on self-esteem. And that's where that came into be a huge thing for me. So the best way that I can identify subconsciously, but in my mind, where somebody is how they handle criticism. That's the single best indicator. If they have for example, Trump gets really defensive if he gets criticized. He has a very, very low self-esteem, but it can be a great motivating factor. But I certainly don't recommend it. I think it becomes self-actualized is far more important. So let's go to the next page. So for significant change to occur, 3 things. Knowledge. Do I know what I need to know to become the best person that I can become with the brain wiring and the self-esteem and knowledge and self-acceptance? I can provide that, and I've done it 2,000 times in 15 countries. And now with 5 books, either co-authored. And here's a guy link. I'm at a meeting and somebody mentioned something about me, and Mark Victor Hansen, the co-founder of Chicken Soup, came up to me and said, "Tom, how'd you like to co-author Chicken Soup for the Entrepreneurial Soul?" Crazy. Chicken Soup sold over 100, the whole series, over 100 million copies. And I was invited to co-author one on the Chicken Soup for the Entrepreneurial Soul. So that came out of a God wink, totally. But I pursued it. I followed up on it. So knowledge, self-expression, actualization, knowledge, I can provide. Or you can get it out of books. I'm going to recommend some really, really good books that changed my life. Significant emotional experience, which is your right brain, function at 4 to 8 cycles per second. You have to provide that. You have to have enough reason to accomplish the things you want to accomplish. Now, one of the things we'll talk about a little bit later is how I got to where this all played a major role. You can't dream big enough. Nothing changes until the pain, at the very bottom, nothing changes until the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of changing. Okay, next page. Principles are universal truth. You got to know the principles. They're universal truth. The ability to recognize, relate in all 6 areas of life. 80%, in my theory, 80% of who you are today was determined time you were 8 years old. Parents pretty well decide that. The growth curves, we'll talk about that. Elite 18, Divine 9, Heaven 10, we'll talk about that. Next page. 18 months growth curve. I read a book in 1965 that Gordon Moore, the co-founder of Intel computer chips, predicted that the speed of a computer chip is going to double every 18 months and go down in price by 50%. And I thought, why 18 months? Why not 20 months or 12 months? But that became my model for setting goals, 18 months goals. So you start out with major goals. You see your chart there, and then at 6 months, and then it plateaus. it plateaus. And then around the 18th month, something clicks and it takes you to the next level. That's another thing. So let's go to the next one. We'll talk about the networking. Growth concepts. So one person who's attracted to me can change my life forever, like Mark Victor to do a chicken soup book or sell the franchises or whatever. So I came up with this program model for networking. So I have a group of people I call the Elite 18, and there's nothing magic about elite or even 18. It's just a number and name. So I have 9 people that I have on this list. These are major people. Some of them I haven't even met yet. That could have the capacity to change my life forever. Divine 9 is what I call the watch list. These are people I think I might want to meet, but I don't know. I had a guy call me one time. He said, "Tom, I've written a book, and I want you to read it." And I put him on the watch list, and come to find out I didn't need him. Third category is who would you risk your life for? I have 7 people that I'd risk my life for, family people. Then that was my networking system all through the REMAX year. And then I read a book by Malcolm Gladwell called The Tipping Point. And he said the magic number in a network is 150. He said that's based on some scientific from Oxford, England. So I added this 150. So I make a list. So every 90 days on each one of these, I send them a book or and the 150 is an email. And I've got a network that's just unbelievable. So I put all these things together, and I give you a good example. I met a guy that heard me speak in Phoenix. He was from Arkansas, but he built a successful business in Phoenix. And so he came up to me after the class and he said, "I'm not sure all this works." He said, "I can't dream big enough." He said, "I've dreamed big." He said, I've created the largest taxi cab company in America." I said, "Well, you still haven't dreamed big enough." And he said, "Well, I think I have." But he came one of my coaching clients. And so 6 years, which is 4 18-month G curves, what I call growth curves, 6 years and 2 weeks later, after he became a client, he said, "Tom, I never dreamed it. I never believed I could exceed the dream that I had." And he said, it's happened. It has to do with where the brain's wired that determines, you setting your goal. Ideally, you'd like to be a 2 left brain to 2 right brain. Now, I grew up about a 5 left brain. My wife, Betty, when I met her, she was about a 5 right brain. They complement each other really, really well if you don't get too far on either extreme. The right brain person is very insightful. They're sensitive to subconscious feelings and changed my life forever. So that's the bottom line. Now, one idea, well executed, can change your life forever. So one person who's attracted you because who you've become can change your life forever. So I have 4 mantras. Mantra number 1, I have a moral obligation to be the very best person I can be in all 6 areas of life. How can I be better spiritually? How can I be better in health? Here I am, 84 years old, soon be 85, and enjoy just a really, really great health. I do 3 to 5 miles, walk, run 5 days a week. And then, so I want to be the best person I can be. Number 2, I want to make a positive difference in every person I come in contact with. It could be as simple as a compliment or giving a $100 bill. Just lots of ways to do that. And then one idea is the networking. I want to have a positive network, and then I want to have a growth curve. So 1999, I invited 29 people to Lake Tahoe, called the Eagle Summit. We're getting ready for our 60th gathering. I never, ever dreamed. There's no agenda. There's no theme. We have speakers, round tables, and music, and we meet for 2 or 3 days. The next one coming up is in Houston, because one person can change your life forever, and it's by invitation only. So there's some great books to read, great ideas. So Norma, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that very much. No questions in the chat box, but lots of great information. We did get the slides up for you to see as Tom went through the presentation. It's downloadable for you in the chat box. And I added the IQ Advantage website that you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. We really, really thank you for that. Thanks to Dan Woods and Woods Advisors for sponsoring today's webinar. The webinar was recorded. It will be available tomorrow in the Chamber's Business Advocate email and also on our YouTube channel for you to access at any time. You'll be receiving an evaluation form from us that we appreciate if you complete, because we value your input and it helps us plan future programming.
Yeah.
We talked
and
about
Norma,
the book giveaway. Yes?
if anybody wants to I started a newsletter. I tried it. My goal is to read a book a day, but I probably do good to do one a week. But I have a newsletter that's free. Comes out every Friday morning. I put on the best book I've read that week, the most interesting person I've met. I put on there a message in each issue that is called Eaglezine. They can contact. Go to the website, drtomhill.com, and you can sign up for it there. I got about 10,000 readers, and I like to promote the success of other people.
Okay, I'm putting that in the chat box for everybody as well, so they'll have it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So we are going to draw for the book. Well, I've actually pre-drawn. So the winner of the autographed copy of Living at the Summit is Rachel Collins. So Rachel, it's here for you at the Chamber office. If you want to stop by and pick it up, and I hope you. There is one question in the chat box now about. Have you taken advantage of the shelter-in-place orders to build your network?
Advantage of what?
Say that again. I didn't catch it. No.
Have you taken advantage of the shelter-in-place orders that we've been under to build your network?
Oh, social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never dreamed I'd have 10,000 people reading my newsletter every Friday, or close to 10,000.
Well, I'm looking forward to signing up for it and hearing about it. So, and anybody else, like I said, I did post that in the chat box as well for everybody.
Yeah, and feel free to forward those on to me if you want to, Norman. I'll answer it personally.
Okay, sounds good. And so next week's webinar will be Thursday, July 9th at 9 a.m. We're still working out the details of who the presenter is going to be, but I can tell you that some of the people that we've lined up for the coming weeks are Laurel Menague from the Pacific Institute. And right now I also have Jeff Fricknick, who's the former superintendent at Altamont Community Unit 10, and also has a company called Triumph Inspired Motivational Presentations. So Jeff will be, and Laurel will be speaking in the coming weeks, as well as a few other speakers that we haven't confirmed quite yet. But looking forward to hearing more from these motivational people, inspirational people, to help us kind of reset ourselves and our brains, and looking forward into the future. So just be checking your email for those announcements of next week's program presenter. As always, if you have recommendations for topics and speakers, we're happy to hear those. So please let me know. Feel free to email me with those. With that, I want to wish you all a very safe, healthy, and happy Independence Day this weekend. And so enjoy today and the rest of this week. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tom.
My pleasure.